A millionaire disguised herself as a cleaning lady and let her maid manage her company. The next day, she was speechless at what the maid had done in her place. The shrill sound of the alarm clock pierced the silence of the small apartment in the Bronx, pulling Emma out of a restless sleep. Her brown eyes, marked by deep dark circles, opened reluctantly. As she got up, her gaze fell on the pile of medical bills on the bedside table. Emma sighed heavily, her heart tightening with worry. How am I going to pay for all of my mother's medical expenses? I should have studied more, gotten a better job. Maybe if I work more overtime. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of coughing from the room next door. Emma hurried, knowing her mother needed her morning medication. In the tiny kitchen, Emma brewed a strong coffee while mentally organizing her day. The bitter aroma filled the air, mixing with the musty smell that seemed to cling to the walls of the old building. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the cup, betraying the accumulated exhaustion from sleepless nights and endless days of work. Today I have to clean Mrs. Lewis's penthouse. Maybe she'll give me a good tip if I do an exceptional job. God, please let her be in a good mood today. Emma closed her eyes, allowing herself a brief moment of vulnerability before putting on her mask of strength again. Emma quietly entered her mother's room, carrying a tray with coffee and medicine. Her mother's wrinkled, pale face lit up with a weak smile as she saw her. "Good morning, my daughter," Mrs. Smith whispered, her voice hoarse from illness. Emma sat at the edge of the bed, helping her mother sit up. "How are you feeling today, Mum?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Her mother coughed before replying, "Better, thanks to you, my dear. I don't know what I would do without you." Though affectionate, her words weighed heavily on Emma's heart. As she helped her mother with breakfast, Emma fought against the wave of guilt and helplessness that threatened to overwhelm her. Her eyes scanned the simple room, lingering on the photos of happier times hanging on the peeling walls. One in particular caught her attention, she and her mother smiling in front of the family's old flower shop, before the illness, before the debts. Emma swallowed hard, forcing herself to smile at her mother. "Do you remember that day, Mum? When we won the prize for the best floral arrangement in the neighborhood?" Emma asked. Her mother nodded, her eyes shining with the memory. "Yes, my dear. We were happy, weren't we? But don't worry, better days will come. I have faith." Emma held her mother's hand, wishing she could share that optimism. The phone rang, shrill and persistent, making Emma jump. She rushed to answer it, her heart racing with a bad feeling. The voice on the other end was professional and distant, but the words hit Emma like a punch to the stomach. "Miss Smith, this is St. Mary's Hospital. We need you to come urgently. Your mother's test results have arrived and, well, it's best we discuss it in person." Emma felt the world spin around her, her legs weakening. "What happened? Please tell me," she begged, her voice barely a whisper. The nurse hesitated before responding. "Your mother needs surgery, Miss Smith. It's an expensive and necessary surgery." The words echoed in Emma's mind, blending with her frantic thoughts. "How will I pay for this? What am I going to do? My God, I can't lose my mother," she thought, looking at the room where her mother lay, unaware of the bomb that had just exploded in their lives. Emma closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and made a decision. "I'll be there in an hour," she said firmly, hanging up the phone. She didn't know how, but she would find a way. She had to find a way. On the other side of the city, the morning sun filtered through the enormous windows of the Lewis mansion, bathing the luxurious breakfast room in golden light. Ava Lewis, impeccably dressed in a silk robe, sat at the marble table, her iPad casting a bluish glow on her tense face. She scrolled through the screen, absorbing the headlines about her cosmetics company. Each negative article made her stomach churn. Sales declining, animal testing scandal, stock prices plummeting. Ava closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. "How did we get to this point? I built this empire with my own hands, and now it's falling apart," she murmured to herself. Ava picked up her coffee cup, the rich aroma contrasting with the bitter taste in her mouth. She looked out the window, watching the meticulously maintained gardens of her property. Everything looked so perfect on the outside, a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding in her professional life. Her phone vibrated, and she saw a message from her assistant reminding her about the board meeting. Ava felt a wave of anxiety run through her body. They'll want my head in that meeting, but I'm not going down without a fight. This company is my life, she thought, her mind racing. The sound of footsteps interrupted her thoughts. Her housekeeper, Emma, entered the room quietly, carrying a tray of fresh fruit. Ava barely noticed her presence, so absorbed was she in her thoughts. Emma placed the tray on the table and hesitated for a moment, watching her employer with a mix of curiosity and concern. Ava finally looked up, meeting Emma's gaze. "Is something wrong, Ma'am?" Emma asked softly. "You seem worried." "Nothing you need to worry about, Emma. It's just business," Ava replied, her voice softer than usual. At that moment, Ava's iPad let out a sharp sound, signaling the arrival of a new email. She frowned, recognizing the sender's address as being from the board of directors. With a sense of dread, Ava opened the message, her eyes quickly scanning through the content. As she read, her face visibly paled. The email was clear and direct. The board was considering removing her from the presidency of the company she had founded herself. The words seemed to leap off the screen, each one like a stab to her chest. "They can't do this to me. This company is my life, my legacy. I won't let them take it from me without a fight," Ava whispered, her voice trembling with anger and fear. Ava let the iPad fall onto the table, the thud echoing in the silent room. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath to try and calm her racing heart. Emma, still standing there, watched her employer with growing concern. The heavy silence was broken by the sound of Ava pushing her chair back and abruptly standing up. She walked over to the window, her footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Emma hesitated, unsure whether she should leave or offer comfort. "Emma, have you ever felt like your life is falling apart around you?" Ava asked, her voice surprisingly calm. Emma swallowed, caught off guard by the personal question. "Actually, ma'am, I feel that way almost every day." Ava turned, facing Emma with a new intensity. "Tell me," she softly demanded. Caught by surprise, Emma hesitantly began to speak about her sick mother, the mounting medical bills and the constant fear of not being able to afford the necessary treatment. Her words began to flow faster and faster, as though a dam had burst. Ava listened attentively, her eyes softening with every word. "It's like I'm always running but never getting anywhere. Sometimes I think that if I just had a little more, everything would be different." Emma finished, her voice trembling. Ava nodded slowly, a sad smile on her lips. "And sometimes I think my life would be so much easier if I had a simpler job, without all the weight of corporate responsibility." The two women stared at each other, a moment of mutual understanding passing between them. Ava returned to the table, picking up an apple from the tray Emma had brought. She turned it over in her hands, deep in thought. "It's funny, isn't it? How we always think the other person's life is easier," she murmured. Emma silently agreed, her eyes fixed on her hands clasped together. "Ma'am, if I may ask, what happened? What did that email say?" Emma asked hesitantly. Ava sighed deeply. "The board wants to remove me as president, Emma. The company I built with my own sweat and tears. They want to take it from me." Silence fell over the room once more, each woman lost in her own thoughts. Ava bit into the apple absent-mindedly, her gaze distant. Suddenly she straightened up, a spark of something, perhaps hope, perhaps madness, gleaming in her eyes. Emma watched, intrigued, as her employer began pacing back and forth, muttering to herself, "Emma, what if I told you I have an idea that could potentially solve both of our problems?" Ava said abruptly, turning to face her. Emma blinked, surprised. "What kind of idea, ma'am?" Ava smiled, a smile that was both exciting and slightly unsettling. "A crazy idea, Emma. An idea that could change everything. I have a proposal for you, one that may seem completely absurd at first glance," she said, her eyes shining with restrained excitement. Emma felt her heart race, a mix of hope and apprehension growing in her chest. "What proposal, Mrs. Lewis?" Ava stepped forward, her voice low and intense. She gestured for Emma to follow her into her private office, an impressive room decorated with mahogany furniture and shelves full of books. As they walked, Emma could feel her heart pounding, a mix of curiosity and nervousness taking over. Ava closed the door behind them and turned to face her housekeeper, her eyes glowing with an intensity Emma had never seen before. "Emma, what I'm about to propose may sound crazy, but I ask that you hear me out until the end," Ava began, her voice firm but with a hint of nervousness. "I propose that we switch lives for 24 hours. You will represent me at the company while I experience your life and your responsibilities." Emma was left speechless, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Mrs. Lewis, this is impossible. How could I possibly represent you? I don't know anything about running a company." Ava smiled, a smile that mixed confidence with a touch of desperation. "You know more than you think, Emma. You've been observing and learning more than you realize all these years." Ava started pacing around the office, quickly explaining her idea. She talked about how Emma could use her unique perspective to address the company's issues, while Ava would gain a new appreciation for the daily struggles her employee faced. Emma listened, still stunned, trying to process the absurd proposal. Her eyes wandered around the luxurious office so far removed from her own reality. "But Mrs. Lewis, what if I make a mistake? What if I ruin everything?" Emma asked, her voice trembling slightly. Ava stopped pacing and looked directly into Emma's eyes. "I trust you, Emma. More than that, I believe your unique perspective could be exactly what the company needs right now." Ava then mentioned the substantial bonus Emma would receive for participating in this unusual experiment. Emma's eyes widened at the amount, her mind immediately calculating how it could help with her mother's medical bills. She felt a surge of hope, mixed with a paralyzing fear of the responsibility she was about to take on. "It's a considerable amount, Emma. Enough to cover your mother's medical expenses and still leave some left over," Ava said softly, noticing her housekeeper's reaction. Emma swallowed hard, her mind spinning. I don't know what to say, Mrs. Lewis. It's such an unexpected proposal." Silence fell over the office as Emma considered the offer. Ava waited patiently, her eyes never leaving Emma's face. Finally, Emma took a deep breath and nodded slowly. "I accept, Mrs. Lewis," she said, her voice steady despite the tremble in her hands. Ava smiled broadly, the relief evident on her face. "Excellent, Emma. Don't worry, I'll give you all the necessary instructions," Ava exclaimed, her energy renewed. She quickly moved to her desk, grabbing an agenda and flipping through it. Suddenly, she stopped, her face paling slightly. "Oh, there's something I forgot to mention." Emma felt her stomach sink. "What is it, Mrs. Lewis?" Ava looked at her with an apologetic expression. "There will be a crucial board meeting. As my representative, you will have to attend." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "A board meeting, Mrs. Lewis, I don't know anything about corporate meetings. How can I possibly represent you?" Ava placed a reassuring hand on Emma's shoulder. "Calm down, Emma. I'll give you all the information you need. Besides, your unique perspective could be exactly what we need to face the board." Emma took a deep breath, trying to control her rising panic. "What if I make a mistake? What if they don't think I'm worthy of representing you?" "Trust yourself, Emma," Ava said firmly. "You are more capable than you think. Now let's head to my dressing room. We need to prepare you to look and act like an executive." With that, Ava guided Emma out of the office toward her dressing room, ready to begin the transformation. Emma followed her, her heart pounding in her chest, unsure if she had made the biggest mistake of her life or was about to embark on the greatest adventure she would ever experience. Emma hesitantly entered Ava's luxurious dressing room, her eyes scanning the rows of expensive clothes and elegant accessories. Ava began sorting through the racks and drawers, pulling out pieces she considered suitable for the board meeting. Emma felt completely out of place, her hands sweating as she touched the fine fabrics she had never dreamed of wearing. "Here, try this on. Remember, Emma, appearance is half the battle in this world." "You need to exude confidence," Ava said, handing Emma a perfectly tailored suit. Emma nodded nervously, whispering to herself, "Confidence. Right. As if I know what that means in this context." While Emma changed behind a screen, Ava fired off instructions about the company, her voice firm and fast. She spoke about the latest board decisions, ongoing projects, and expectations for the next quarter. Emma tried to absorb it all, her mind working frantically to memorize every detail. She stepped out from behind the screen, awkwardly adjusting the blazer. "Remember, Emma, you are my personal representative. Keep your posture straight, your gaze steady. Don't let them intimidate you," Ava instructed, helping Emma adjust the collar of the blazer. Emma swallowed hard, her voice trembling slightly. "What if they ask questions I don't know how to answer, Mrs. Lewis?" Ava picked up a pair of high heels and handed them to Emma. "If you don't know the answer, don't make something up. Just say you'll check and get back with the information. Show that you're willing to learn, but don't be submissive." Emma put on the shoes, immediately feeling unsteady. She took a few hesitant steps, trying to adjust to the new height. "Now about the meeting agenda. The main point will be the new line of sustainable products. You need to emphasize our commitment to innovation and environmental responsibility," Ava continued, picking up a leather folder from the bedside table. Emma nodded, her eyes wide with worry. Sustainability, innovation, responsibility, got it. But what if they ask about specific numbers? Ava was about to answer when an urgent knock at the door interrupted. Ava's assistant, a young man in a well-tailored suit, rushed in, his face pale with concern. He stopped abruptly when he saw Emma dressed as an executive, but quickly composed himself. "Mrs. Lewis, we have a problem. I just received information about a potential scandal involving the company. The press is already looking into it," he said, his voice tense. Ava visibly paled, exchanging a worried glance with Emma. "What kind of scandal?" The assistant hesitated, glancing nervously at Emma. Ava made an impatient gesture. "She can hear. What's going on?" The young man took a deep breath before continuing. "It seems there are allegations of animal testing in our new product line. If this leaks, it could ruin our reputation and the launch of the sustainable line." Emma felt panic rise in her chest. She looked at Ava, expecting to see the usual confidence of the CEO, but instead saw only shock and worry in her eyes. The dressing room, once a symbol of luxury and power, suddenly felt suffocating. "Oh God, what have I gotten myself into?" Emma thought, her heart pounding. Ava turned to her, her voice trembling but determined. "Emma, it seems your first task as my representative just got a lot more complicated." Hours later, Ava adjusted the strap of Emma's worn-out bag on her shoulder, feeling uncomfortable in the simple clothes she had chosen to represent her housekeeper. She paused for a moment at the mansion door, looking back at the luxury she was about to leave behind. The driver, puzzled by the unusual situation, waited patiently beside Emma's small car. "Remember, Ava, you are representing Emma. Do your best just like she would," she murmured to herself. Taking a deep breath, she turned and walked toward the car, her straight posture betraying her privileged upbringing. The drive to the Bronx was an eye-opener for Ava. As the car navigated through increasingly congested streets and more modest neighborhoods, she watched through the window, absorbing a reality she rarely saw up close. Deteriorating buildings, cracked sidewalks, people rushing with tired expressions, all of it painted a picture very different from the life she was used to. How does Emma make this trip every day? Ava thought, feeling a newfound appreciation for her housekeeper. "Ma'am, we've arrived," the driver said, pulling her from her thoughts. Ava stepped out of the car, staring at the worn-out building in front of her. She hesitated for a moment before entering, feeling the weight of the responsibility she had taken on. In the cramped, noisy elevator, Ava rehearsed in her mind how she would introduce herself to Emma's mother. "I'm a friend of Emma," she repeated quietly. "I'm here to help for today." The elevator stopped with a jolt, and Ava took a deep breath before stepping out. Standing in front of Emma's apartment door, Ava felt a wave of nervousness. She inserted the key into the lock, the sound of the mechanism echoing down the quiet hallway. As she opened the door, she was greeted by a small, modest apartment, but it was clean and organized. The contrast to her mansion was stark, and Ava felt a pang of guilt for never really considering the living conditions of her employee. "Emma, is that you, dear?" A weak voice called from the bedroom. Ava froze for a moment, then forced herself to respond, "No, ma'am, I'm a friend of Emma. She asked me to come help today." Ava hesitantly walked toward the bedroom, her heart racing with each step. She knew that caring for a sick person was far beyond her experience, but she was determined to do her best for Emma and her mother. When she entered the room, the sight of Emma's mother, frail and connected to various medical equipment, hit her with full force. "Oh heavens, will I be able to help?" Ava thought, feeling completely out of her comfort zone. At that moment, Emma's mother began coughing violently, her body shaking with the effort. Ava stood paralyzed, panic rising in her chest as she realized she had no idea how to handle a health crisis. Meanwhile, in the city's upscale district, Emma nervously adjusted the borrowed blazer as the elevator ascended to the boardroom floor. Her heart pounded against her ribs, and she struggled to control her breathing. The doors opened, revealing an elegant hallway adorned with photos of the company's products. Emma moved forward, her high heels echoing on the marble floor. She stopped in front of the double doors of the boardroom, took a deep breath and stepped inside. "You can do this, Emma. Do it for your mother," she whispered to herself. The room fell silent as she entered, all eyes turning to her. The board members, men and women in expensive suits, stared at her with expressions ranging from surprise to suspicion. Emma walked to the head of the table, the seat reserved for Ava, feeling the weight of every gaze. She placed her folder on the table and stood tall, reminding herself of Ava's instructions about posture and confidence. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Emma Smith, Mrs. Lewis's personal representative," Emma began, her voice steadier than she expected. A murmur of confusion spread across the room. "Where is Ava?" A middle-aged man at the opposite end of the table asked bluntly. Emma took a deep breath, preparing for the battle she knew was coming. She began to explain the situation, omitting the personal details, but emphasizing that Ava had specifically chosen her for this task. As she spoke, Emma noticed skeptical expressions and exchanged glances between the board members. She knew she had to act quickly to establish her credibility. "I know this is an unusual situation, but I believe my unique perspective can bring new ideas to the challenges we face," Emma said, her voice gaining confidence. "And what perspective would that be?" a gray-haired woman asked, her tone bordering on sarcasm. Emma decided to change tactics. Instead of trying to imitate Ava, she chose to be honest about her position. "As someone who has worked behind the scenes for years and observed this company while working closely with Ava, I have a different view of our operations. I don't just see the numbers, I see the people behind them." She began talking about the employees' concerns, inefficiencies she had noticed, and opportunities for improvement that she saw. To her surprise, some board members began leaning forward, interested. "Interesting," murmured a younger man. "I hadn't thought about it that way before." Emma felt a glimmer of hope. "Maybe I can actually bring something new to this discussion after all," she thought. The meeting continued, with Emma skillfully navigating the topics that Ava had briefly explained to her. When she didn't know something, she was honest about it, promising to get the necessary information. Her frankness and unique perspective seemed to catch the attention of some board members. However, she could still feel hostility from others, especially the man who had questioned Ava's absence at the beginning. "Miss Smith, can you tell us exactly why Mrs. Lewis thought it was appropriate to send a representative to such a crucial meeting?" He interrupted abruptly during a discussion about the new product line, his tone making it clear what he thought of the decision. Emma felt all eyes turn to her, the tension in the room palpable. She knew her response could make or break her credibility with the board. The silence stretched for a moment as she carefully considered her next words. "Mrs. Lewis believes that sometimes we need a different perspective to see solutions that may be right in front of us," Emma began, choosing her words carefully. She paused, gathering the courage for what she would say next. "And frankly, ladies and gentlemen, given the current state of the company, perhaps an unconventional approach is exactly what we need." The silence that followed Emma's words was deafening. She could feel the weight of the stares on her, some surprised, others clearly offended. The man who had asked the question slowly stood up, his face red with anger. "How dare you? You have no idea of the challenges we're facing here," he hissed. Emma felt her heart race, but she stood firm. "With all due respect, sir, I do." Emma then began to detail the problems she had observed over the years, from inefficiencies in the production line to issues with employee morale. She talked about how these small things added up, affecting the quality of the final product and the company's reputation. Her voice trembled slightly, but her words were clear and precise. Maybe I don't understand all the financial aspects, but I understand the people who make this company run every day. And I believe that's just as valuable, she admitted. A murmur of agreement spread through the room, surprising both Emma and the man who had challenged her. The meeting continued, with Emma answering questions and offering insights that wouldn't have occurred to Ava or the board members. She spoke about the possibility of a more affordable product line, arguing that it would not only expand the customer base, but also improve the company's image. When asked about the numbers, Emma was honest about her lack of detailed knowledge, but offered to work with the financial team to develop realistic projections. What we're doing here is more than just selling cosmetics. We're selling confidence, self-esteem, and that should be accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy, Emma said, her confidence growing. She saw several board members nod thoughtfully, including some who had initially seemed skeptical. As the meeting neared its end, Emma could feel a shift in the room's atmosphere. The initial skepticism had given way to reluctant respect and even curiosity. She had managed not only to survive the meeting, but also to bring fresh ideas to the table. When the chairman announced the session's conclusion, Emma let out a sigh of relief she didn't realize she had been holding. Well, Miss Smith, I must admit I'm intrigued by your ideas. Perhaps Mrs. Lewis made the right choice in sending you today, the chairman said, a slight smile on his lips. Emma smiled, feeling a wave of pride. Thank you, sir. I hope I've contributed in some way. As the board members left the room, Emma began gathering her papers, her hands still trembling slightly from the adrenaline. It was then that she noticed the man who had initially challenged her approaching. His face was serious but no longer hostile. Miss Smith, I must admit I underestimated you. Your ideas are interesting. However, I still wonder why Ava really sent you. What's her play here? He asked in a low voice, his eyes narrowing as he spoke. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. She knew she had successfully navigated the meeting, but this man clearly suspected there was more to the story than she was revealing. And he wasn't wrong. Sir, I can assure you there's no hidden agenda. Mrs. Lewis simply believes in listening to all voices within the company, Emma replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The man studied her for a long moment before slowly nodding. We'll see, he murmured before turning and leaving the room. Emma was left alone in the boardroom, her heart still racing. She had survived the meeting, even managed to impress some of the board members. But now she faced a new challenge, keeping the charade going and dealing with growing suspicions. As she left the room, she couldn't help but wonder, what would Ava say if she knew what happened here today? And how am I going to explain all of this to her? However, Ava had her own problems on the other side of the city. She felt panic rising as Emma's mother's coughing worsened. Without thinking twice, she rushed to the bedside, supporting the elderly woman and trying to calm her. Breathe slowly, please, Ava begged, her voice trembling. But the situation kept getting worse. The older woman's face was growing paler, and Ava could see the effort she was making to breathe. In a moment of clarity, Ava realized she needed professional help immediately. Hold on, I'm going to call an ambulance, Ava said, her voice firmer than she felt. As she dialed the emergency number, one thought hit her. My God, how does Emma deal with this every day? The following minutes were a blur of frantic activity. Paramedics stormed into the small apartment, firing off quick questions that Ava could barely answer. She found herself mumbling about medications and medical history, painfully aware of how little she knew about Emma's mother's condition. When the paramedics began moving the elderly woman onto the stretcher, Ava felt a wave of guilt for not asking more about her employee's life all these years. Can I go with her? Ava asked, her voice almost pleading. One of the paramedics nodded quickly. Yes, but we need to leave now. She needs urgent care. The ride to the public hospital was a surreal experience for Ava. The inside of the ambulance, with its equipment and the beeping monitors, was a world completely foreign to her. She held Emma's mother's hand, murmuring words of comfort that sounded hollow even to her own ears. Looking at the pages of questions, Ava felt completely lost. How am I supposed to explain that I know nothing about the patient I'm supposedly here with? The hours that followed were a humbling experience for Ava. She faced endless lines, confusing paperwork, and overworked staff. Every minute that passed made her feel more powerless and frustrated. When she finally spoke with a doctor, the news wasn't good. "The woman you're with needs an innovative treatment. It's expensive and not covered by her insurance," the doctor explained, his tone serious. Ava felt her heart sink. "How much does it cost? There must be something we can do." The doctor mentioned an amount that made Ava gasp. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be a problem for her, but now. She suddenly remembered that she had left all her credit cards with Emma. Desperate, Ava pulled out her phone and tried calling Emma, but it went straight to voicemail. She must be in the board meeting. What do I do now? Ava thought, feeling the panic rise again. At that moment, a nurse approached urgently. "Her condition is worsening. We need a decision on the treatment now." Ava looked from the doctor to the nurse, feeling the weight of responsibility crushing her. She couldn't reach Emma, and the life of this woman was literally in her hands. For the first time in a long while, Ava Lewis, the powerful CEO, felt completely powerless. "Please, there must be something I can do," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. But as the medical staff waited for her response, Ava realized she was facing one of the toughest decisions of her life, and time was running out fast. Ava closed her eyes for a moment, trying to calm her racing mind. When she opened them again, there was a fierce determination in her gaze. "Start the treatment. I'll take full responsibility for the costs," she said firmly. The doctor and nurse exchanged hesitant looks, but Ava continued, "I know I may not seem like it, but I assure you I have the means. Please, save her." "All right, but we'll need some form of guarantee soon," the doctor reluctantly agreed. Ava knew she had to sort everything out and could only hope things were going smoothly for Emma. Meanwhile, after the tense board meeting, Emma barely had time to catch her breath before being informed about an emergency interview. The buzz at Lewis Cosmetics headquarters was intense, with employees rushing back and forth, phones ringing non-stop. Emma was quickly escorted to a conference room where a team of journalists was already waiting. "Remember, be firm but empathetic. We're dealing with a crisis here," the press advisor whispered to Emma as they adjusted her microphone. Emma nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "Ava trusted me. I can't let her down now." The lights came on, and Emma found herself face to face with a journalist who wore a stern expression. "We are live with Emma Smith, representative of Lewis Cosmetics," the journalist began. "Miss Smith, how is the company responding to the serious allegations of animal testing that surfaced today?" Emma could feel all eyes in the room on her, waiting for her response. "Lewis Cosmetics has always upheld the highest ethical standards," Emma began, her voice surprisingly steady. "We take these allegations very seriously and are conducting a thorough internal investigation." The journalist didn't waste any time. But internal sources claim that upper management was aware of these tests. How do you explain that? Emma felt a wave of panic, but forced herself to stay calm. She thought about her experience in the company, the conversations she had overheard over the years. As someone who has worked closely with the manager of this company for a long time, I can say that she never knew about such practices. The employees of this company are passionate about ethics and sustainability. An interesting response, the journalist commented. But that brings us to another question. Why isn't Mrs. Lewis here personally to address these accusations? Emma swallowed hard, remembering the delicate situation Ava was in. Mrs. Lewis is dealing with an urgent personal emergency. She trusts her team to manage this situation with transparency and integrity. The interview continued, with Emma skillfully navigating questions about the company's practices, sustainability policies, and future plans. She was surprised by her own knowledge, gained from years of observing and listening behind the scenes while hearing Ava speak. When the journalist seemed to run out of ammunition, Emma began to relax a little. Maybe I'm doing better than I expected, she thought, allowing herself a small smile. But her relief was short-lived. The journalist looked directly at her and said, "One last question, Miss Smith. How does Mrs. Lewis explain the 2010 incident involving her former company and similar accusations of unethical practices?" Emma felt the blood freeze in her veins. She had no idea what the journalist was talking about. Her mind raced, desperately searching for any information she might have heard about Ava's past, but it was blank. The silence in the room became oppressive as everyone waited for her response. "Oh God, how am I going to get out of this?" Emma thought, feeling the panic rise. The journalist smiled, sensing she had cornered her interviewee. "So, Miss Smith, the public is waiting for an answer." Emma felt time slow as her mind worked frantically. She knew her answer could make or break not only this interview, but potentially the entire reputation of the company. Taking a deep breath, she decided to go with honesty. "To be completely transparent," Emma began, her voice trembling slightly, "I am not familiar with the incident you're referring to. As Mrs. Lewis's representative, my focus is on the company's current and future practices, not on past events that I cannot confirm or deny." The journalist raised an eyebrow, clearly unsatisfied with the response. "So are you saying that Lewis Cosmetics keeps its representative in the dark about the company's history?" Emma felt a surge of determination rise within her. "No, what I'm saying is that our focus is on concrete, verifiable actions in the present." Taking advantage of the moment, Emma decided to shift the narrative. "What I can say with certainty is that right now Lewis Cosmetics is fully committed to complete transparency. We are inviting journalists, activists, and regulatory authorities to visit our facilities and verify our processes for themselves." With that, the journalist ended the interview, leaving Emma with no idea how her responses would be received. But as she left the meeting room, she didn't have time to think because she saw missed calls from Ava, which made her heart race. "I hope she called to check if everything is okay. I hope there's no problem with my mother and Ava," she thought. Ava left the hospital, exhausted and emotionally drained. Emma's mother was stable, but the fear and helplessness Ava had felt during the crisis still reverberated through her body. She glanced at the clock and realized she was late for Emma's next commitment, cleaning a wealthy client's home on the Upper East Side. With no time to change clothes or properly compose herself, Ava hailed a taxi, mentally trying to prepare for the task ahead. How does Emma do this every day? "Well, now you're going to find out," Ava murmured to herself, feeling every muscle in her body protest. Arriving at the grand mansion, Ava hesitated for a moment before ringing the doorbell. The door was opened by an elegant middle-aged woman who immediately frowned upon seeing Ava. "You're not Emma," the woman said, her voice laced with suspicion. Ava swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "No, ma'am. I'm Ava, a colleague of Emma's. She had a family emergency and asked me to cover for her today." The response came more easily than Ava expected, but the client's look made it clear she wasn't entirely convinced. "Well, come in then," the woman said reluctantly. "There's a lot to be done and we're already behind schedule." Ava nodded, thinking to herself, "If I can manage a multi-million-dollar company, surely I can clean a house, right?" Reality, however, turned out to be far different from Ava's expectations. She found herself struggling with the vacuum cleaner, confused by the various cleaning products, and completely lost about the proper order of tasks. The client watched her like a hawk, making critical comments every few minutes. "Emma never leaves streaks on the mirrors," or "Emma always knows exactly how to arrange the cushions." Ava felt sweat running down her back, a mix of physical effort and growing anxiety. How does Emma stay calm under this constant scrutiny? Ava wondered, trying not to show her frustration. "Maybe because she actually knows what she's doing," her mind responded sarcastically. The hours dragged on, and Ava felt every muscle in her body protesting against the work she wasn't used to. She had knocked over a vase, thankfully empty, accidentally mixed colored and white clothes in the laundry, and nearly broke an ornament that looked ridiculously expensive. With each mistake, the client's gaze grew colder and more distrustful. "Ava," the woman finally said, her tone sharp, "I'm starting to doubt that you really work with Emma. Your incompetence is shocking." Ava felt panic rising. "Ma'am, I assure you I'm new to this, but I'm doing my best." The client crossed her arms, her gaze piercing. "Well, your best is clearly not good enough. I think I'll call the agency and check your story. Emma has never let me down like this before." She picked up the phone, her fingers hovering over the buttons. Ava felt her heart race, knowing that her cover was about to be blown. "Wait, please," Ava said desperately, her mind racing to find a way out. But the client was already dialing, and Ava knew she was seconds away from everything falling apart. Feeling the growing desperation, Ava decided to play her last card. With a trembling but determined voice, she said, "Ma'am, please, I beg you not to call. The truth is, Emma is going through a very difficult time with her mother in the hospital. She asked me to come because she didn't want to let you down, and as her friend, I couldn't refuse. I know I'm not up to her standards, but I'm really trying my best. If you could just be a little patient with me, I promise I'll do better." Ava paused, her heart pounding as she saw the client's expression soften slightly. "Emma always speaks so highly of you, about how understanding and kind you are. Please don't let her down now when she needs you the most." The client hesitated, the phone still in her hand, but then slowly she placed it back on the receiver. "All right," she said finally, her voice softer. "I'll give you one more chance, but I expect to see significant improvement. Understood?" Ava nodded vigorously, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. "Thank you, Mum, you won't regret it." As she picked up the cleaning supplies again, Ava made a mental note to commend Emma for her patience once all of this was over. "I'll never underestimate the work of cleaning again," she thought, preparing herself to face the rest of the day with a new appreciation for what Emma did daily. Emma arrived at Ava's mansion with a heavy heart, physically and emotionally exhausted after the intense day. As she entered, she found Ava sitting on the sofa in the main living room, looking equally drained. The two women stared at each other for a moment, the silence thick with tension and expectation. It was Ava who finally broke the silence, her voice hoarse with fatigue. "Emma, I don't know where to start." Emma slowly walked over, sitting down in the chair opposite. "Maybe from the beginning, Mrs. Lewis, how is my mother?" "Your mother is stable now, Emma," Ava replied, guilt evident in her voice, "but it was close. I never imagined it would be so hard." Emma nodded, unshed tears glistening in her eyes. "Thank you for taking care of her. I don't know what would have happened if—" Ava abruptly stood and walked over to the window. "Emma, I completely underestimated your life, your work, everything. The way you handle all of this daily. It's extraordinary." She turned to face Emma with a newfound appreciation in her eyes. "And you? How was your day in my shoes?" Emma took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "It was intense, Mrs. Lewis. The board meeting, the interview. I think I may have made a few mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" Ava asked, her voice tense. Emma then recounted the events of the day, including her promises of transparency during the interview. As she spoke, she saw Ava's expression shift between surprise, concern, and, surprisingly, admiration. "Emma, you may have saved the company today," Ava finally said, her voice trembling slightly. "Your honest and straightforward approach was exactly what we needed in this moment of crisis." Emma felt a mix of relief and pride, but it was quickly replaced by concern. "But what about the animal testing, Mrs. Lewis? Were the accusations true?" Ava looked away, guilt written all over her face. I didn't know, Emma. I swear I didn't know." The silence that followed was heavy, both women lost in their own thoughts. Emma finally spoke, her voice firm. "Then now we have to do the right thing, don't we? We have to keep the promises I made." Ava nodded slowly, a renewed determination in her eyes. "Yes, you're absolutely right. We'll do this together, Emma. Your perspective is exactly what this company needs." As they discussed the next steps, Ava's phone rang. She answered, her expression quickly changing to one of shock. After a brief conversation, she hung up, turning to Emma with a mix of surprise and concern. "That was my assistant. Apparently your statements about transparency and social responsibility made our stocks skyrocket. Investors are excited about the new direction of the company." Emma blinked, surprised. "That's good, right?" Ava nodded slowly. "Yes, but it also means we now have to deliver on every promise you made. And there's more. The client you normally work for called. She wants Ava to become her permanent cleaner. Apparently, my honesty impressed her." The two women looked at each other, the reality of their actions starting to sink in. They had started this experiment hoping to gain a new perspective, but now they realized they had set off a chain of events that would change their lives and the company forever. "What do we do now, Mrs. Lewis?" Emma asked, her voice barely hiding her nervousness. Ava took a deep breath, a determined smile forming on her lips. "Emma," Ava began, her voice firm yet gentle, "I want you to join the executive team at Lewis Cosmetics." Emma blinked, sure she had misheard. Ava continued, "Your unique perspective, your integrity, and your ability to think quickly under pressure are exactly what we need to move this company forward." Emma felt her heart race, a flood of emotions rushing through her. Excitement, fear, disbelief. "But Mrs. Lewis, I don't have any formal business training. I'm just a—" "Don't underestimate yourself, Emma," Ava interrupted her. "You saved this company today, and more importantly, you showed me a new way to lead." Emma was silent for a moment, taking in the offer. "What if I'm not capable?" she whispered, voicing her fears. "You are capable, Emma. I wouldn't offer you this if I didn't believe it. I'll be by your side every step of the way," Ava reassured her. In the days that followed, Emma found herself swept up in a whirlwind of changes. She accepted Ava's offer, and together they began to implement the promises of transparency and social responsibility. Emma brought her unique perspective to every meeting, challenging the status quo and proposing innovative solutions. There was resistance, of course, but Emma's determination and Ava's unwavering support began to shift the company's culture. "You're transforming this company, Emma," Ava remarked one day, watching Emma lead a presentation to the investors. Emma smiled, feeling a confidence she never thought possible. "We're transforming this company, Mrs. Lewis, together." As the company flourished under the new leadership, Emma's mother's health gradually improved, thanks to the treatment Ava had made possible. Emma balanced her new responsibilities at the company with regular hospital visits, watching her mother's recovery with a mix of joy and gratitude. One day, after leaving the hospital following an especially encouraging visit, Emma received a message from Ava. "Emergency meeting. Come immediately." What could it be now? Did something go wrong? Emma wondered, feeling a pang of anxiety. But when she arrived at the office, Emma wasn't greeted by a crisis but by a celebration. The conference room was decorated, and the entire executive team was present, including Ava, who was smiling widely. "Emma," Ava announced, "we just received the results from the first quarter since our changes. Our sales increased by 30%, and we've been named one of the most ethical companies of the year." The room erupted in applause, and Emma felt tears of pride welling up in her eyes. She looked at Ava, seeing not just her boss anymore, but a partner and a friend. "We did it, Mrs. Lewis," Emma said, her voice thick with emotion. Ava smiled, placing a hand on Emma's shoulder. "Yes, we did. And please call me Ava." In the months that followed, Emma and Ava continued working side by side, each bringing their unique strengths to the partnership. Emma never lost her empathy for employees at all levels, often walking the factory floor and listening to their concerns. Ava, on the other hand, never again underestimated the value of Emma's perspective, always seeking her advice on important decisions. One day, as they shared a late-night coffee in the office, Ava chuckled softly. "You know, Emma, I used to think your life was easier than mine. What a foolish thought." Emma smiled in return. "And I used to think the same about you, Ava. I guess we both learned a lot." As they looked out the window at the brightly lit city, Emma reflected on the incredible journey they had been on. What started as a simple role swap for a day had transformed not only their own lives, but the lives of everyone around them. The company was thriving. Emma's mother was healthy, and they had found a friendship and partnership neither of them ever expected. Who would have thought that one day of craziness could lead to all of this? Emma thought. And beside her, Ava smiled as if reading her mind. "Here's to change, Emma," she said, raising her cup in a toast, "and to never underestimating the power of a new perspective." That night, as Emma and Ava gazed out at the city from the office, they both reflected on the extraordinary journey they had taken. What began as an impulsive experiment of role swapping had turned into a powerful partnership, redefining not only their lives, but also the future of Lewis Cosmetics. They had learned that someone else's life may always seem better or easier, but every life experience carries valuable lessons. The empathy, understanding, and mutual appreciation they developed not only saved the company but also forged an unlikely and lasting friendship. Together, they proved that true leadership is born from understanding and mutual respect. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to continue bringing exciting stories almost every day. Don't miss the next surprising narrative that's about to pop up on your screen. We truly appreciate having you here with us. Now you can click the links that are appearing on the screen right now. We have a special selection just for you, full of valuable stories and guaranteed entertainment. See you there.